Welcome to Nine's Late News. I'm Kate Creedon. These are your headlines this Tuesday night. Another bank blow. Millions of households tonight grappling with the second rate rise this year, and there could be more to come. Fuel rationing fears as petrol giants are hauled in for emergency talks. Donald Trump calls on allies to help secure the Strait of Hormuz. Will Australia get involved? Cyclone Narelle forms, now barrelling towards Queensland's far north coast. And will he stay or will he go? Kyle Sandilands' radio future on the line. A contract battle goes down to the wire.
This is 9 News with Kate Creedon.
Good evening. Households around the country are tonight reeling after yet another budget blow from the Reserve Bank, increasing the interest rate for the second time in as many months. And with inflation already uncomfortably high, the war in Iran is only adding fuel to the fire. The cash rate is now at 4.1%, up 25 basis points. And this is what it means for mortgage holders. Homeowners with a loan of $700,000 are now paying $211 more each month from the hike this year. For a loan of $1 million, that's just over $300. Here's what the Reserve Bank Governor Michelle Bullock had to say this afternoon.
Fuel prices and this additional rise in mortgage rates is going to be hard for some people. I do understand that. But it'll be much worse if inflation gets built into the fibres, and then we will see the costs of everything going up, and that will be a much worse outcome. My
fuel bill has gone up. The cost of everything's gone up, and now keeping a roof over my head in the form of a mortgage or rent goes up as well. Are they on board with the plan here?
It is hard, I understand that, but it is the only instrument we have, and it is important that we get inflation down.
OK, I want to bring in Scott Phillips now, Chief Investment Officer at the Motley Fool. Scott, good evening. It was the news we were all dreading. What's your take?
Kate, good evening. All dreading, but frankly, most of us were expecting. Given where inflation was, maybe the biggest surprise is that it wasn't a unanimous decision. It is going to mean more pain for mortgage holders. Hopefully, it has the desired impact, though, of reducing those inflationary pressures that are still going to be felt right through the economy.
Yeah, that was interesting. The board was divided on this decision, voting 5-4. I mean, what does that tell us going forward?
Yeah, really good question. The governor was actually clear about this in the press conference that Chris Kohler and others attended. Chris obviously reported on that. The key thing here was that she said it wasn't the direction that was debated, but the timing. What we can infer from that, I think, is that all 9 members of that rate-setting committee wanted rates to increase at some point. Some wanted to wait, others wanted to go now. In the event, 5-4 was the majority. We don't know who voted for what. We don't know whether the RBA's own recommendation was to increase or hold. In the event, a very, very finely run thing.
Well, as you said, it was expected. How have the banks reacted so far?
Speaking of expected, Kate, it didn't take them very long. NAB was the first one out of the gates, increasing their variable rates by 0.25. Within a couple of hours, all of the big 4 banks had done exactly the same thing. No surprise, their funding costs go up as a result of this. So, yeah, they have to pass that on. They're often quicker to pass those things on, though, than they are to pass on rate cuts, which is kind of interesting, right?
Absolutely. And look, I guess it is really difficult. I know I read today that 35% of Aussie households are paying off a mortgage. I mean, just 35%. These are the people that have already been through so much pain. Of course, a little bit of relief last year, but now they're the ones being slammed again. I mean, do we need to look at other ways to drive down inflation?
Oh, man, we so do. I'm glad you asked this question, Kate, because it's really, really important, right? We have the government, and this is not a political statement, we have a federal government, a federal parliament, with dozens of potential ways of changing economic circumstances. The RBA has been very clear. Demand is too strong relative to the ability of supply to keep up. That's why we're having prices go up. More people want stuff, there's not enough stuff to go around, prices go up. So what do? You impact demand. The Reserve Bank has one tool, interest rates. They can either go up, down, or keep them where they are. They're looking at the numbers saying demand's too high, we've got to do something. The federal government and the federal parliament sitting by saying, yeah, well, we kind of think we'd like to help and we're doing things on cost of living, but we're not really doing anything at all to address the causes of inflation. To be fair, some of those are international, but they're not making any effort at all. There's so many tools at the federal government's disposal. Unfortunately, they're choosing to use exactly zero of them. That makes Michelle Bullock the bad guy or the bad woman. It also makes the RBA the focus when perhaps we should be looking more broadly, including at Parliament.
Yeah, it doesn't really help any of us by not doing anything further. And of course, we could be about to see a third consecutive rate rise. As you just said, the effect on hip pockets is there. But what impact is this likely to have on the property market?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We're already seeing a bit of weakness in the property market on the back of previous rate increases. So we're now at a situation where buyers will not be able to afford to borrow as much. The banks are obliged to use the current cash rate and the current variable rates, add money to that and say, well, if rates went up by 2 percentage points, what would we do? Could they pay this loan off? The higher rates go, the less likely that is, the less possible that is, and we probably will see a softening in the Australian property market. The only thing that will keep it going is we have a really significant shortage. The vacancy rates are almost at record lows. So as much as they can't afford necessarily to borrow or pay the rent, there is no other choice. That might put a floor under property prices.
All right, Scott Phillips from the Motley Fool, thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks, Kate.
So with interest rates up and the price of petrol also soaring, the Treasurer has a huge task to get things under control ahead of the May budget. Here's Nine Network's political editor, Charles Croucher.
Being able to see how the Reserve Bank votes is only a new thing. So the 5-4 split today is the first time there's been a truly divided bank that we've known about. What it does do is gives the Treasurer and borrowers hope of a hold in May. But uncertainty still rules here at the bank and right around the world. Donald Trump and the ruthless regime in Iran probably hold the key to rates in their hands. And unfortunately, they won't be losing any sleep over Australian mortgage holders. The government cannot control what's happening in the Middle East, that is clear. But the Reserve Bank noted that inflation was already too high, and that's before the war broke out. The government instead must look to the budget. Jim Chalmers now has nearly 2 months to publicly or privately or subtly or subliminally or in any way show the Reserve Bank that restraint will be the order of his budget. But the budget will come after the bank next meets. Today, Michelle Bullock repeatedly says the bank has only one lever, and that is interest rates. The government has more, and that's the hint she was giving them. The challenge being laid down by the Reserve Bank comes as the government asks all Australians to show some restraint at the Bowser.
Charles, thank you. As fuel prices rise and supplies drop, Victoria's Premier is moving to assure drivers the state is planning for petrol supply contingencies. Penelope Liersch has more from Melbourne.
Victoria's Premier Jacinta Allen has today held emergency talks with the fuel sector as well as those in agriculture and trucking. Heads of government departments have been told to come up with continuity plans. More inspections will be deployed to keep an eye on price gouging in the fuel sector. And for the first time, what's being called a Class 2 controller is being put in place at the State Control Centre. Their job will be to keep tabs on the state's fuel supplies as the government moves to reassure Victorians. Federally, the ACCC has held an emergency meeting with major fuel retailers, state motoring bodies and the Institute of Petroleum. The Federal Energy Minister says oil companies are expecting deliveries through this month and next, but the ACCC has been told the worst of the price rises are still to come. The Farmers Federation here in Victoria are also urging drivers to leave the car at home and take public transport instead to help conserve fuel for our agriculture sector to ensure enough food can be grown, harvested and then delivered. As some rural fuel stations run dry in Victoria, the Farmers Federation is also calling on city drivers to leave their cars at home and opt for public transport in order to conserve as much fuel as possible for food production.
The Strait of Hormuz is critical in easing the financial strain, and right now oil tankers in the passage are at a standstill. To discuss, I'm joined by defence expert Jennifer Parker from the Australian National University. Jen, today Donald Trump took aim at allies of the United States, saying the future will be very bad unless other countries help secure the passage. What kind of help is he asking for?
Yeah, this was a fairly surprising statement, I've got to say, from President Trump. He has asked for some specific countries, so the UK, oddly China, and South Korea and Japan, amongst others, to send some ships to the Strait to help escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz, to reduce that backlog of tankers in the Persian Gulf and in the Gulf of Oman waiting to transit the Strait. Now, that's what he's stated. I actually think what he's looking for is political support. Operationally, until the US have managed to significantly reduce the numbers of uncrewed aerial vehicles, missiles and uncrewed surface vessels that Iran is managing to employ, then it really isn't a good idea to start trying to escort ships through that strait. It's a very constrained strait. It's navigationally constrained. There's not a lot of room to manoeuvre. It's also so close to Iran, parts of it go through Iran's territorial waters, that you don't have a lot of time to detect a missile or drone once it's fired to the coast, from the coast, and then respond. So I don't think that you're going to get a range of navies that aren't used to working together conducting operations through that strait. I'm not sure what that's what the US want. I think what they want is political support and to reassure markets right now that are driving the price of oil up.
So it's unlikely that Australia would accept the president's request at this stage?
Well, the Defence Minister, Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles, has said that Australia has not had a request, but also said that we wouldn't be looking to send a ship. And I think that is true. Now, of course, we have supported the US in similar operations during the 2019-2020 Gulf crisis. We sent personnel. In fact, I deployed to the Middle East then, and we sent a ship. We also sent ships during Gulf War I. I think the difference right now is that the Royal Australian Navy has limited surface combatants, so frigates and destroyers. We only have 10. Most estimates say we should have double that, to be honest, and that's before we think about the threat of China. And most of those, not all, but some of those, are going through critical upgrades. So sending a ship right now would undermine our preparedness of the Navy. So I think it's unlikely to see a ship deployed to the Middle East, and I think it's unlikely to see the US specifically ask it at this point.
Yeah, and by the sounds of it, doesn't sound like the right time to be sending any of our resources far away from home. But is Donald Trump's plan going to ease oil supply crisis that we are seeing across the world?
Well, look, eventually ships will start going through the strait. It is a matter of time. Now, how long that is, I'm not going to predict, but there is an economic imperative for ships to get through there. The US are clearly focused right now on reducing Iran's ballistic missile capability and their nuclear capabilities. If the US managed to reduce the ability of Iran to target ships and use uncrewed surface vessels and uncrewed aerial vehicles to hit ships, and then start to reassure shipping that it's safe to go through, you'll see shipping start to go through. The question is just when. It's not days, but it's not months.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. I mean, it's a very tense situation as it stands. Jennifer Parker, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much.
Still to come in 9's late news, tearing through Melbourne, a police chase goes wrong. We'll show you how it ended. Queensland bracing for a tropical cyclone barrelling towards the state's north coast. And what's next for Kyle and Jackie O? A contract deadline just hours away. Live on 9 and streaming on 9 Now. We'll be back with more right after this. A ute driving on its rims has crashed into at least 10 cars across Melbourne's inner north before the driver was arrested in Richmond. Police caught up with the man on foot at around 7 p.m. after finding the Ford Ranger near one of the crash sites. Officers are currently interviewing a 49-year-old man from Oakley. Its alleged drugs were found in the car. After flooding rains across the state, Queensland is now in the firing line of a tropical cyclone. Ned Baum joins us now from Brisbane. Ned, the system has formed and we have a name.
Yeah, good evening, Kate. Cyclone Narelle is currently making its way towards the Queensland coast, the far north Queensland coast. It was a tropical low that we've been kind of looking at over the past week or so, but it has formed and is currently a Category 1 storm. But we are expecting that to pick up, possibly a Cat 2 by tomorrow morning and a Cat 3 by tomorrow afternoon. And it is expected to make landfall on Friday. By that time, it could accelerate all the way to a Category 4 cyclone. What does that mean? Well, we could see gale force winds of around 240 kilometres an hour, and those winds could extend further south, even towards Port Douglas and Cairns. Along with those winds, potentially looking at, well, a lot of rain in the area, potentially around 300 millimetres, potentially even more, into an area that has already had a lot of rain so far this year. Here is what the BOM has to say about what we can expect.
Catchments through far north Queensland are quite saturated, given we're at the back end of the wet season. There's a lot of water already on the ground. That does mean that any further rainfall could exacerbate both the risk of flash flooding as well as riverine flooding.
So yet another weather event for Queenslanders to pay close attention to. We've had a fair few of them this year, Kate, and we'll be paying close attention to this one to see what it means, especially in those already saturated catchments.
Yeah, Ned, thanks for the update. Accused Bondi terrorist Naveed Akram wants the identity of his family to remain anonymous. The 25-year-old hanging his head via video link in court today after learning his family have received multiple death threats. His lawyers have asked for the names of his family and location of his family home to be off limits. Former NRL star Curtis Scott is in custody over an alleged brawl which included his mother. Scott is accused of fighting with a teenager at a Sydney light rail station before allegedly assaulting a police officer following the Swans match on Saturday night. He's facing 3 charges and his mother is facing 2. The deadline for Kyle Sandilands to remedy his alleged contract breach with Australian Radio Network is just hours away. He briefly addressed his current employment status as he appeared live on Australian Idol earlier this evening.
Today, Ricky, I've got nothing else on my mind except for the excitement of the vote.
And look at you.
I also am dressed like this because I have a job interview at Lowe's after the show. Because radio guys, once you're out of radio, all you can do is sell socks at Lowe's. At Lowe's,
no
we'll save you. For now, I've got this job, and for now, I still have the other job.
Okay. But you can put us down for a reference.
For more, I'm joined by marketing expert Dee Madigan. Dee, thanks for your time. Obviously, we're still waiting to hear what will happen. How do you see this playing out?
I think the fact that ACMA yesterday found that there was 9 more breaches and have put 5 sort of impositions now on it, which is that they've got to have better decency standards, no sexual references, an independent audit and an implementation of that audit, and that will apply to any show that Kyle is on by himself or Jackie's on by herself or that they're on together. And if they breach those things, they're in danger. The network is in danger of losing their licence. That says to me that ARN will not be super keen to have them back. There's too much at risk.
Yeah, it's certainly high stakes.
And high money as well for the contracts as well.
It absolutely is. And look, I'm still concerned about what it means to remedy the situation. I mean, is there any chance we'll see them back on air tomorrow morning?
I reckon Jackie wants it. I could be wrong, but there was a tone shift in her thing where she seemed to be mad at ARN instead of just mad at Kyle. But I think it's all too late. And I think ARN will be like, do you know what? They've dropped, I think it's 16% in their revenue in Metro Radio. That's a lot. Kyle and Jackie O weren't the big hit in Melbourne that they would be. They're costing the radio a lot of money in terms of their contract, and I don't think they're making it back for them. So I reckon ARN will be kind of secretly pretty happy about all this.
Yeah, you're right. It's absolutely huge money. But given what has occurred over the past few weeks, has the Kyle and Jackie O brand now been tarnished, or is there still value in this partnership?
It's interesting because the ratings are going to come out. I think it's tomorrow, and I suspect they'll still be winning the ratings even though they haven't been on air, but nowhere near what they were. And the problem with them, even though they're winning the ratings, the whole point of winning ratings on commercial radio station is you can then charge advertisers more for the spots. But a lot of advertisers don't want to advertise there. So even though they're winning the ratings, they're not getting the money they should be from the advertising because of a lot of people don't want their brands associated with it, and they've been the campaign by the MFW, which is, I won't say the word. So because of that, they're actually really expensive for the radio station regardless of their ratings.
What about the audience? I mean, if they do go elsewhere, perhaps a podcast or a rival network, is there a risk for ARN that they take that audience with them?
If they go to a rival network, they'll find that the same conditions will follow them. Like the ACMA will absolutely put that on them. No other network is going to touch them. Whether they can do something on their own, they won't get a radio licence, but they could certainly do a daily podcast, and that I would imagine could be quite successful.
But is ARN going to be able to afford to pay them out of that contract or fight them in court?
Either way, ARN's going to spend money, but whether it's in court or to pay out a contract, who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating.
It is.
To watch. Dee Madigan, thanks so much
Pleasure.
for your time. When we return, body cam footage of the moment 2 Hawk stars were busted trespassing and arrested in the US. And millions of Australians are tonight feeling the squeeze, so is it now the time to switch to an interest-only loan? And let him entertain you, Robbie Williams' exciting announcement, bringing him back Down Under. Police body cam has exposed what happened when two AFL players were arrested in Arizona last year after climbing onto a scissor lift. Friends of the Hawthorn duo pleaded with officers to let them go in an Uber, but they were handcuffed and locked up instead.
Officer, we're from Australia. We literally don't know the rules around here.
Well, that sucks. You probably should learn that before you came here.
You're not going to lock them in jail for the night.
I am, though.
Really?
Yes. Damn.
Dylan Moore and Connor McDonald have court dates in the US for trespassing later this year. Neither Hawthorn nor the AFL are taking further action. With a second interest rate hike locked in and the prospect of a third looming, could cash-strapped borrowers look at interest-only loans to ease the squeeze? Nine's money editor Effie Zahos crunches the numbers.
If you're feeling the squeeze, you might be wondering if switching to interest only for a year could help. Ride out the hikes, come out the other end in a better position. It can give you breathing room, but at what cost? Here's the maths. A $600,000 home loan over 25 years just became about $90 per month more expensive. At the new average rate of 5.73% for existing loans, repayments are now $3,767 a month. Switching to interest only slashes that bill, but there are two massive catches. First, the cost. If you're switching by choice, interest-only rates are about 0.9% higher on average. Even on the higher interest rate, by taking a breather on your principal, your repayments reduce by about $487 a month. Hardship cases avoid the higher interest rates and arrangements are tailored to individual cases. The second catch? You are not paying down that principal. After 12 months, you still owe the full $600,000, but you have one less year to pay it off. The bottom line, interest only buys you time. It works if rates fall, your income rises, or you plan on selling and property prices go up. If not, you're just pushing a bigger problem further down the road.
Thanks, Effie. Robbie Williams has announced he's doing a stadium tour in Australia this November. Speaking to our very own Richard Wilkins on Nine's A Current Affair, the British singer opened up about his strong bond with Australia.
In Australia, I'm allowed to be the creature that I've always wanted to be. You know, I'm embraced, and instead of laughing at, Australia seems to laugh with me.
3 shows have been announced in the tour in Sydney, Melbourne and in Newcastle. Stay with us, your weather details are coming up next as we take a look at Sydney Harbour, where it's currently 23 degrees. Taking a look at the weather around the country tomorrow, a shower or two for Brisbane, 29 degrees. Showers for Sydney too, a storm also possible, bringing heavy rain, 26. A shower or two for Canberra, 23. Partly cloudy in Melbourne, also 23. Similar in Hobart, some cloud about in Adelaide too, 26. Warm and sunny in Perth, 36. And showers with a possible storm for Darwin, a top of 31. Before we go, here's a quick look at what's coming up on Today.
Well, we love a giveaway. Tomorrow we have a cracker.
How would you like to win a glamorous stay at the Arda Milton Park at Bowral? Flights, accommodation at dinner. Be watching for the details.
Thanks, team. If you missed anything from tonight's bulletin, you can catch up on 9 Now. That is Nine's late news for this Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow night. I'm Kate Creedon. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.